that
Sure.
efficient. We're still old school around here. We run upstairs and downstairs. Great. All right, let's get started. Now, hopefully you have your pattern with you because we are going to need that most of all. And the first thing that we discovered on this is Diane has worked with several people on doing reflected harmony.
Connected.
And so, when yep, we're connected, Karen, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, you're great. Oh, there she is, Diana.
I may have to mute the bird. Mute you.
You can mute yourself, and so if you need to, but okay. So the first thing, yep, they're here. They figured it out, Diane.
Good.
So the first thing we need you to do is we need you to pull out this document. So this is your fabric key, and it's on the back of the courtyard picture. And that's the most important thing for all of us to start with is if we start with that that piece. And let me see if I can get there we go. There we go. And because on the back of this, it shows the fabric. And so the most confusing thing for everybody is this. And so Diane, I'm gonna have you stand up so you can see them. They want to see you. Okay. See, you want to see Diane's here. This is the most confusing part. And what Diane and I are going to do is we are going to send you these instructions because on here, Diane has written how much yardage for each of these fabrics, because in your kits, you have all these fabrics. And when you see the fabrics, like for example, this fabric, maybe hold that for a moment. You can go ahead and put that down. And then you go to this fabric. As you can see, when we hold them up next to each other, it's very obvious to us which one is which. However, when you look on the yardages on the page, this is B fabric and this is E, and B has 1 yard and E has 1 7/8 yard. So for you to distinguish in your kit which one is B and which one is E, we are going to send you all of these numbers. Does that make sense? Okay. Some of you did reflected harmony in the past with Diane. And when you got reflected harmony, we sent you a list of everything that you were supposed to cut out. And many of you not many, Diane said a few people cut everything out. We would rather you not cut anything out until we do each section. And so Diane, you want to explain that?
It just works out, I think, better because then you make sure to use the right fabrics when you're cutting. And a couple people got some fabrics twisted, and because of the way they lay out, the fabric needs to be where it belongs, and it's a kit, so we may or may not have more of that fabric if you make a cutting error.
So talk to them about what you recommended, like once we get this key to everybody to make sure you mark which one is which.
One of the things we did with reflected harmony was we used little Ziploc bags and we marked them fabric A, fabric B, so that they were all separate. And then like sometimes when you're cutting and using the quilt, it may just work out that you cut out 8 of the half square triangle and you only need 6. So then you put those extra half squares in that bag marked with that fabric color. And then as you go on, you may pull those out and use them for a later block. Okay. So it just helps to keep all your fabrics really organized and together. And then we don't, plus when you go to start, when you look at like this month's, you only need, well, you do need like 6 fabrics. But those are the only 6 fabrics you should have on your cutting table. Everything else should be set aside and put somewhere else, just because it just clutters less and it keeps your mind and cleaner and less confusing.
So the first step that we're going to have you do is that after we're done here, we want you to go grab this chart, and we want you to go through all the fabrics that are in your kit, and we want you to separate them out and mark them. And then you will only work with those pieces. And to Diane's point, anything that you have marked, she's saying, put it in a bag or tie it up. I would probably recommend that you put it in a bag, because if you don't put it in a bag, what's going to happen is that you're gonna have to keep going back every time and looking and looking and looking and looking to figure out what it is. So we're gonna talk this time about, we're gonna divide things out. And so when we look at the fabrics, according to the chart, B is the fabric that has the biggest print on it. And when you look at this on your chart, your B is going to be your 1 yard cut. And so pull up the pattern. This is our pattern. So if you notice, B is that center piece. Then this one's the blue linen. This is the light. And then this is another floral. So we want to make sure you don't get confused before we get too far into this. So the first cut, we're going to talk about, Diane, the center of this is B. And then in your instructions, this goes back to like looking at the instructions. If you are a person who is not cutting this with AccuQuilt, we are going to need you to let us know that when you email us, or let us know in the chat over here. But we need to know that, so we make sure we go through the cutting instructions. This is my recommendation. You see all these cutting instructions in here? I would recommend you not read them. Did I hear someone laughing? You should laugh. You should laugh. Don't read the instructions.
It's so typical, Jill.
You shouldn't. Most of you are visual learners, and you like to. And I mean, I think I think there's some really brilliant math people out there. But I'm going to go over a little bit of math with this one, because this is the block that's sitting in front of us right now. And so with this block, and actually I need to pull that up because it's hard to see on this one until Diane pulls it apart. But with this block, let's look at these corners. If this corner was it's 2 inches cut, right? So if I was going to make this corner the same size as that center, I would put 4 of that corner together. So 2 plus 2 is 4, less 1/4 and 1/4 for the seam is 3.5. Guess what size that center is? 3.5. Okay. So what Diane's got up here, you can show them, Diane. So these are 2-inch corners.
2-inch corners.
This is out of your 6-inch cube.
Yep, everything's out of your
We'll pull it up a
6-inch
little bit.
cube. So then the next ones are our half squares from our 6-inch cube. And then your large half square. Okay. And when you go to sew these, you're going to sew this guy to this guy, this guy to this guy, and then fold him over and he will sew along there, and you get a nice straight seam.
Mm-hmm. So how you know the math on something like this, if this was 2 inches, then this finished piece in here is a 3-inch finished square, which means that cut raw, like the center is 3 1/2 inches. So this one is which out of your cube? This is number
6.
This is 6-inch cube. This is number 2.
2.
Okay. This is number 1. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if I put 4 of these together, I would get 1 of these. So the center on this, I would recommend that you write 6.1 on your page for that center, because that's your 6-inch cube, your number 1 unit. This corner is 6.2. Okay. Now, this piece over here, this is number 5 out of your cube. And what they call this is they call this a 1.5-inch finished half square. That's because if I sewed 2 of these together, the outside edge of it would match this square right here, which means it would be raw edge to raw edge, 2 inches. Finished is 1.5-inch half squares is what it's called, a 1.5-inch square.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that comes up. Now, for some of you who might not be used to us talking to you like this, we talk in 2 languages. We talk in Kay England and a lot of our friends talk about this as a finished size. And those of you that are really high functioning math people, you can remember that. For me, I look at this and I say, all I want to know is what size I need to cut it, right? Raise your hand. Diana, raise your hand. Yeah, I don't care what it is finished, right? Diana, do you care what it's finished? No. Yes, bless her heart. Mwah. When I look at the size of this is a 2-inch cut, a 1.5-inch finished. If you happen to be at a dinner party where you're hanging out with high functioning quilters, don't say a word. They call this a 1.5-inch finished because they're trying to say to you how smart they are. If you have dinner with me, we're going to have hot dogs and I'm going to tell you, cut this at 2 inches, right, Diane? Diane and I get along really well because we talk the same way. Cut size. But I want to make sure that you understand that you're not stupid if you talk about this in 2-inch size. I have yet to meet a functional quilter who does not call themselves a professional, who doesn't talk about this in cut size. I just want to make sure that when you go to that dinner party, you don't talk in cut size because they might snicker at you. Fair enough? Fair enough. Diana. Thanks, Diana, for being on the screen. You're making Diana and the mind job much easier. Okay. Does that make sense? All right. So how do we get over here to this friend? All right. We're going to talk about this. This is triangle number.
I don't think he is.
No, it's not 3. No, is it 4?
Could be 4.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send Diane downstairs to get the cube for us because we want to make sure we're showing you which is which.
Right.
Yeah, which is the right number. Now, if I sewed 2 of these together, and this is the part that's really tricky. If I sewed 2 of these together, look at how big that looks compared to that. But what ends up happening is that I actually lose 1/4 and 1/4, which takes that down by about that much. And now look at if I overlap those 2 like I was sewing them together, look at how it fits on the size of that one. This always trips people up. The other thing that trips people up is how do I sew these on here? You know, do I sew them like this? No, you actually, this is a real trip up is that you have to keep in mind that this edge and this edge are biases. So when you sew this on, this is straight of the grain. And when you sew these guys together, we're going to end up sewing that bias together. So when this is all done, I'm going to have straight of the grain here, straight of the grain here, straight of the grain here, and straight of the grain there. The reason that you do it that way is when I go to sew the whole thing together, then I've got straight of the grains in all the pieces.
Yes.
This one's number 5. This little one's 5.
Yep.
And this
that
big one is
3.
3. So this one on your page, you're going to write 6.3. When I say 6.3, it means it's in a 6-inch cube. It's element number 3. Okay. Now let's pause and talk about this for just a moment. If I switch over and I was going to do this in a 12-inch cube, this would not be number 3. However, in a 12-inch cube, you actually do have a 3-inch finished half square. Okay. So that is an overlap that you have between the 6-inch and the 12-inch cube. Would it ever necessitate me not buying a 12-inch cube if I own a 6-inch cube? Absolutely not. There is reasons for them to be in each of those elements. Plus the fact when you buy a cube, it's like the equivalent of getting, I think it's 35 to 40% off. So consider that a free die and get over it. Okay. All right. So that puts this little corner out here. But what I love about this corner piece, and you can do this in Courtyard. If you notice over here, Diane turned one of these around. You could do that. You could actually, it's okay, Diane. You could actually have put your whole block together and you could put this little corner down here and this up here. Oh my gosh, Diane, you're not perfect today.
Uh-oh.
That's all right. You're my pal. There we go. Look at how different this block would look. You could turn them around. You could turn it around any number of ways. This is how a lot of blocks have been built over the years. They sometimes give them different names and sometimes they don't. Now, this is easy to cut. 3.5-inch cut. That's 6.1, 6.2, 6.5, 6.3. Let's talk about this monster in here. Now, on your pattern, you're seeing this friend in there. This is quarter square triangles. That means your biases are all in here. This is one of the rare times you see in quilt blocks where people put together quarter square triangles to make an element. So what this is that you have bias edges all inside of here, which can be quite a monster, right? So when you sew these guys together, and Diane, this is how I sew them together. You tell me how you sew them together. I sew them like they're a 4-patch. And I go right to the sewing machine and I sew them together like that. Sorry, Diane.
That's okay.
Sew them together like that. And then I treat it like a 4-patch. Did it fall all the way down? Now, the tricky part about this one for you is a math thing. You want to tell them about it, Diane?
No, you just have to remember to put them together correctly. So your pattern with your light and your pattern with your dark, and you'll need to be respective of right and left side. Okay. So if you're going to sew this guy to the right, you're sewing the other one to the left on your solid prints.
So when you sew a block like this, Diane, do you take this board over to your station or what do you do? Or your sewing station?
I do. I lay it out on here and then I just have it right next to my machine and I just start on the left-hand side and work to the right for the top row and then do my middle row bottom and then put my rows together.
Okay. Okay. Now, after talking to Diane about this, I brought her in because honestly, she's a pro at this. She's a pro at helping you through a very complicated set of steps. One, I brought her in because she's going to be a really good, I like it because she's a sounding board to tell me like, Jill, you missed this or that piece, come on in. And then the other one is I want to go through the steps that she's seen people struggle with. So on this one in particular, when you look at the instructions, on the back of the instructions, it says your fabric requirement for this is you're cutting out this one by 9 inches by 21 inches and this one by 4.5 inches by 21 inches. I would recommend if you are working with AccuQuilt that if I was going to cut out these little squares up here in the corner, my hunch is that you're going to be cutting out more of those squares in the future. In fact, where's the finished quilt picture? Right here. Look at all the squares you're going to be cutting out that are going to be that size. See that? Now, I don't want you to get cutting crazy with this, but I would strongly recommend that on those 2-inch squares on the AccuQuilt piece, that means that the size of the 4 of them is 4 inches by 4 inches because it has 4 of those squares up there. So 2, 2, 2, 2. I would recommend that you cut a strip of fabric about 4 1/4 inch or 4.5, and then stack them up in, and now for this one, I would just lay 1 square on it and I would just cut the 4. And, you know, because we're only making 1 block this time. When we get down to the point where you're cutting down all those squares, we're going to start stacking them up in layers of 6. So on this particular block, when you have this first one and that fabric for those squares is that blue linen, that M, then what I would do is that I would stack it up, I would cut it, and then I would put it in a bag with the letter M on the bag so that you do not have to keep resorting this. If you are so cut happy that you want to cut those M's up into 6 of them and get 24 2-inch squares, go for it. Because as best I can tell from your pattern, you're probably going to use them again in the future. The other one is that when you are using AccuQuilt and on a lot of the patterns that we see out there, Diane, when you agree, like Vanessa Christensen's patterns are probably the most common for this. Many times when they have you sew something like a flying geese unit, yeah, she just rolled her eyes. Did you catch that? They have you cut a rectangle and the squares and sew on the diagonals and flip them back. Okay. We're going to refrain from doing that as much as possible. In fact, we're going to show you how to cut a parallelogram and instead of half square triangles. If we can get you to do that, we will. The reason that this is important is when we did the double dozen, the recent mystery, we found that by using AccuQuilt, you saved 30% of your fabric. 30%. That's massive. That's a baby quilt for every time you make a twin size quilt. That's really, really a large amount of fabric to save. So what we want you to do is we want you to resource your time and what you're using for this project so that you can move forward on it without having a whole bunch of waste. Okay. So Diane, and anything, recapping, like what is it, what's our first steps we want them to do?
I think the getting your fabric labeled and in a bag, so that then when we get to this is marked month 1, but it's week 1, all you should have on your fabric table then are these 6 fabrics. You don't need the other extra ones, because then when you go to week 2, it's the same thing. If you just have these fabrics that you're actually going to be using, then you will be, and if you mark them and put them in a baggie, then like Jill was saying, when you cut, if you just cut out the 4, if that's 2-sided, then you're going to have 8. Just put those extra pieces that you have from that cut into that baggie, and then you will have those going forward when you go, oh, I need 100 blue 2.5-inch cut squares. There you have a handful already, so you can just start and move forward. And you don't have to go looking for them. Oh yeah, like I did. Oh yeah, I know I've got some of those somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we think what we're going to do is we are going to be doing the clues 1 a week because we really think you can do it. This week, the really easy one is you have 1 block to do. So before next week, we hope you do 1 block. So before today is done, you're going to be getting from us, we'll send you the key for how much yardage is in each one of these. We will also send you a chart only with today's cuts. And Diane and I are in 100% agreement on this because you are all overachievers. We're not going to give you the whole cutting chart. We don't want to give you the whole cutting chart because if you cut too far ahead, you're going to, 1, have too many pieces. You risk too many, when we've seen too many mistakes happen. But I know there's a couple of you whose names I can see up there who have said you've already been looking ahead to see if you can figure out what the next sizes are that you have to cut. And I'm going to say, woohoo, brilliant. I'm a teacher by trade. And so back in about the 80s, they started making in our math books so that you could go back to the back of the book and you could look up some of the answers. And parents were telling us they didn't want kids to be able to do that. And what it is it's backed up by good learning. If you take the time to look ahead in your instructions and try out and say, I bet this one's cut out of a 6-inch cube. I'm not sure, but write it in pencil in there, friends, because that's when you build your confidence. That's when, I mean, that for Diane and myself, like, you know,
how you learn.
You learn. Don't try to learn. I mean, you know, if you want to learn French, take a French class and then go to France. And I'm sure my friend Lee is there smiling and say, that's the way to do it.
I'm trying to learn Polish.
Polish, right? Okay, hey, let's go. I mean, the thing about it is that good learning has to do with you're all curious people. Step ahead of that. And you know what? Challenge us too, because we're not perfect. We don't know all the answers. And you know what? You know why Diane and I know more answers than some of you do? Like Liz, we are totally okay with being told we're wrong. We both raised daughters. Like, hey, we got a master's in being wrong. We've been, yeah, it just goes with the territory. So when you look at this, step ahead, go ahead and look in the book and look ahead at those pieces. And don't think it's cheating. It's not. You know what cheating is? It's not even part of this language. I don't think it's part of this language. Like, I think it's great that there are people that are that smart that they can just look at it. And like, to me, I don't like talking to you about this in 1/8 of inches or anything like that. Now, if you want to talk to me about traditional piecing, I'm still going to talk to you about good measure rulers instead. I'm going to send you an email. You'll have a chance to ask questions. We're excited about doing this together, aren't we?
Yeah.
But you know what? Next week I'm going on a vacation trip, so you're on your own, babe.
Thanks.
And I left her with a tough one. This is a tough one. Let's look ahead at next week.
Number 2.
Don't think you can't. This is one where Diane and I are going to show you how to cut this with the parallelogram. This is a huge fabric saver. If you want, we could even talk about Y seams. I'm a little disappointed that block number 2 is block number 2, because I would love to show them how to do this with Y seams, Diane.
Okay. Well, we could always go to 3, and when you're back, we could go to 2.
Well, we'll mess with them. That could be Y seams too, friend. Oh, good. I can teach Y seams by 3. We do 2 the normal way. By the time I get back, I'll show you how to do Y seams on that one. Who wants to do Y seams? Raise your hand.
No, thank you.
Come on.
They aren't that bad.
They're not that bad. And actually what's kind of cool about it is it doesn't interrupt the fabric, but it's worth a discussion. You guys will talk about me when I'm gone next week, and Holly will help get this started. So that's really all I have for today. We talked about this going 2 hours, but we really don't need 2 hours. So you need more time to sew. And looking forward to seeing you. All Iowa Shop Hop ends this week. I did want to mention this about AccuQuilt. I'm not going to tell you exactly what the specials are, but I do want to tell you this. We honor all the specials that you see on with AccuQuilt. If you have something that you need, give a jingle to the store, talk to my friend Diane. She'd be the best to help you with it. They have some crazy specials that are going on these days, and they're actually literally changing so fast that we can no longer, we have a chalkboard. We change the chalkboard every morning. So we are stepping ahead of them as much as we possibly can and staying ahead of it so that we can keep AccuQuilt as a product, because it's important to us. I don't know where life would be for us without AccuQuilt. We get way more done. We would still do it the traditional way, but we get a lot more done with AccuQuilt. So I want to thank you all for being with us today. I will send this recording to you if you want to chat with us again. If you have questions, email me back. And Diane will be here next week at 2 o'clock.
Yes.
All right. All right.
Jill, all
Yes,
of these will be recorded. I'm starting to travel starting next week, and
Yes,
I'll be
ma'am, they
gone.
will all be recorded.
Okay.
We'll record all of them, and then we'll send you guys the links.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Bye, friends.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.